I now call the honourable member for Kooyong.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. It was Winston Churchill, one of the greatest statesmen of the 20th century, who said, "Their insatiable lust for power is only equalled by their incurable incompetence in exercising it." Wind the clock forward 70 years and you couldn't find a more apt description of those opposite. Nowhere is this better exemplified than in the field of foreign policy, as exercised by our former Prime Minister and now Foreign Minister, the member for Griffith. He lurks from one disaster to another, from one train wreck to the next. We had such high hopes for him. A Mandarin-speaking former diplomat with postings to Beijing and Stockholm. A man who hounded Laurie Brereton in the shadow foreign affairs portfolio before he deposed him with a knife as sharp as the one used by Wayne Swan. But now, as Foreign Minister, like his term as Prime Minister, we have had one of the worst foreign policy records in living memory. Labor has ignored our region and Australia is the worse off. It's worth recalling, Mr Deputy Speaker, this litany of failures, country by country, issue by issue. Start with Japan, bypassed by the Foreign Minister on his first trip as Prime Minister. The quadrilateral security dialogue with India, the United States, Australia and Japan abandoned, and then promising to haul Japan before the International Court of Justice on whaling, just as their Japanese Foreign Minister was landing in Australia. On Japan, they've lectured them on human rights. On China, the Foreign Minister has lectured them on human rights, and then was worried about the Manchurian candidate, Monica, starting to stick. So when he was sitting next to the Chinese ambassador in a TV interview in London, he quickly changed the seating arrangements. How humiliating was that? With Indonesia, we had the Oceanic Viking standoff, and now we've got the fiasco around live cattle exports. The problem with the way we treat Indonesia is it's high-handed, rather than a partnership of equals. With Malaysia, the Foreign Minister has failed to lift a hand on the 5-for-1 people swap, damaging our bilateral relationship in the process. On East Timor, he allowed the Prime Minister to announce an agreement that never existed. In relation to the South Pacific, it is absolutely disgraceful that the Foreign Minister has not visited the South Pacific as Foreign Minister. We are the largest donor in the South Pacific. Could you imagine a CEO not going to visit the countries or the places in which his money is being spent? With Fiji, we've been excluded from regional forums. With Papua New Guinea, when it came to Manus Island, we were nowhere to be seen. We do not have a Foreign Minister who's willing to visit. With India, we've failed to sell uranium to them, despite urging our partners in the Nuclear Suppliers Group, another 44 countries, to do so. With the United States, the Foreign Minister, when he was Prime Minister, was responsible for a well-publicised leak of a private conversation with George Bush. When it comes to the department, we had the situation where, as Prime Minister, he vetoed the appointment of Hugh Borrowman as an ambassador because he didn't allegedly possess the requisite foreign language skills, but many people suspected it was to settle old scores. When it comes to the Asia-Pacific community, his own private idea, he wasn't happy with APEC, he wasn't happy with the ASEAN Regional Forum, and he wasn't happy with an East Asian Summit. So he had to come up with the Asia-Pacific community by 2020. Well, Marty Natalegawa, the Foreign Minister then of Indonesia, said it's another layer, an out-of-the-nowhere construction, not in concert, not in synergy with what we have. It came as a surprise to Ambassador Walcott too, who was approached to lead this initiative just 2 hours before the Prime Minister announced it. The UN Security Council has diverted key resources away from our 90-odd missions overseas, and the Governor-General had been sent on a very unusual 7-nation tour of Africa. The problem is we have a Prime Minister who's not interested in foreign affairs. We have a Foreign Minister who's not talking to the Prime Minister. Mr Deputy Speaker, in the member for Griffith's maiden speech, he said politics is about power. It's about the power of the state. Well, he's visited over 40 countries, travelled 300,000 miles and has very little to show for it. Henry Kissinger said, if you don't know where you're going, every road will get you nowhere. Unfortunately, this reflects Australian
Order.
foreign
The honourable
policy.
member's time has expired.